What it do with the businesses, word on the street, is that Chris is known to handle it. Growing up, there was a pastor who had a trash can in his office, and he called it the spot. So after service one day, a mother of the church, she came to him, said, "Hey, pastor, I made you this pie. Make sure you take it, enjoy it, and I'm going to ask you how it tastes." So the pastor takes the pie, takes it to his office. Him and fellow leaders in the church, they're eating the pie, and he takes a bite. He says, "You know what? I appreciate it." He gives it to one of his adjutants, one of his leaders, and says, "Hey, go put that right over there in the spot." So the next week, that same church mother showed up to church. Said, "Pastor, how you like that pie?" He said, "Oh, mother, it hit the spot." And when I tell you that this Chris Brown album has hit the spot, it hit the spot. I mean, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to More Insight. This is Insight you can trust because there is more where it came from. I am your host, Chris Moore. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. One of the things that I learned about Michael Jackson in the movie Michael is that he said he wanted to be a mystery. He wanted you to remember, but he also wanted you to want more. And Thriller dropped in 1982. But that video didn't hit MTV until December of 1983, over a year later. The gap between that is crazy. Now, here's the thing that I love about the Thriller album. You pull up Thriller, it's 9 songs. He dropped that in 1982. He did not have another album drop until 1987, which was bad. So Chris Brown recently dropped an album. It's called Brown. You saw the album cover. He's laying down. It's like his interpretation of the Thriller album. So I'm going in. I'm like, okay, cool. This gonna be one of them ones. I listened to the first song, "Leave Me Alone." I'm saying, okay, we got one of MJ's biggest songs on Bad. And then we also have Chris Brown doing the album cover inspired from Thriller. But it's going to be a classic. Well, let's zoom back. Well, let's zoom out. Pitchfork came out swinging, and they said that Chris Brown, his album, let's zoom out for a little bit, because Pitchfork actually, Alphonse Pierre, he came out swinging. He came out at Chris Brown head. He gave this Brown album a 1.3 out of 10, and he ain't hold back. He said this album is a real piece of caca. It's a real piece of ish. And Chris Brown, he shot right back on Instagram, basically saying he don't care what critics say. The tour is still happening. Everything's still going to be. He's Chris Brown. He's living in, he tapped into old Chris Brown. Not even old Chris Brown. This is who Chris Brown is. That's a whole different subject. Now, I personally don't live and die by what Pitchfork says. Never have, and I never will. I'll never just take what the critics said at their word. And I understand the Chris Brown energy. But here's the thing. Sometimes that criticism, it stings the most when that criticism is pointing at something that is absolutely real. And excuse me, I'm going back and forth because I'm looking at myself over here, but my camera is right here. So, bear with me. But we have to also be honest. We have to have a real conversation. And if we're being honest, the creative conversation around this album is a very fair conversation. Let's start here. 27 songs. 27 songs. There's an old saying that less is more. And at this point in Chris Brown's career, that saying applies more than ever. When you give people 27 songs at once, you're not creating a curated listening experience. You're creating drainage. I don't even want to hear this album because it's going to take so long to get through it. Yes, in the today of things, even with our time consumption, even with our attention span, we still do want to listen to an entire album. That doesn't mean we listen to it all in one setting. I'm sure there are people still listening to, it's evident now, people are listening to the Michael Jackson album because there's 9 songs and it's 9 great songs. People are listening to Confessions today because it's easy to listen through. But when you give us 27 songs, this feels like an obstacle course. I feel like I'm on American Gladiator trying to get through these songs. I feel like I'm on American Ninja trying to get through these songs. Now you're asking me to sort through and do all the work for you. You the artist. It's like that Steve Harvey joke on Kings of Comedy. When I go to a rap concert, I don't want to do all the work. I paid the ticket. You do the work. And not to mention the best albums in R&B history, the ones that last, they're curated, they're intentional. Somewhere in that ballpark between 10, 15, at the most 17. That's something you can journey through. That's something you can work through. 27 songs, it just feels like you just said, you know what, I'm going to take everything that I had in the Dropbox and I'm going to just throw it on the album. Like, this is stuff I've been working on. Like, I'm gonna just throw this to y'all. Like, it reminds me of Martin when he proposed to Gina. Like, are you happy now? Damn. Like, what are we doing here? Now, I'm going to be fair. I am a Chris Brown fan. He is my current king of R&B. We can argue about that later. I'm going to be fair. I'm going to be objective just as much as I am an objective LeBron James fan, which is another video coming up soon. This whole album isn't a total loss. Leave Me Alone opens up with things like I said, Leave Me Alone opens up and it feels like this is going to be a real dope album. And given the album cover paying homage to Michael Jackson and naming the first track after one of his records, I legit thought we were about to get a layered project. I'm thinking that we're about to get a different Chris Brown. I was set up to be impressed. Something in the Water, I rock with that. Red Rum is good. I could do without YB, but YB was still good. For the Moment has that feel. And Perfect Timing with Fridayy. Oh my goodness. That's a standout because Fridayy is just a dope artist to me. Full stop. He elevates every song that he's featured in. But The Flashes of Fallen with Leon Thomas, that single itself has some real creative intentionality behind it. Blues Record felt like, we were getting a different Chris Brown. That collaboration with Leon Thomas felt like something special. But the rest of Chris Brown, in many moments, it doesn't. It doesn't feel special. Here's what I keep coming back to. Chris Brown has the talent to be undeniable. He can dance. He has a voice in the studio. He has charisma. He's got it. What's missing is the creative friction. The right producers in that room forcing him to sit with something longer than just a vibe check or a hookah lounge song. Personally, I would love to see him lock in with Jermaine Dupri. We saw his work with Money Long. Jermaine Dupri still got it, y'all. I would love for him to sit down with Brian Michael Cox, maybe with The Dream. These are people who are architects who have been able to build songs, build careers. They built albums, not just not just radio singles. And on the production side, again, I want to make sure I pronounce his name correctly, but I know Jay White did it and Michael Uzurolu, I believe is how you say his name. But they're doing some serious work right now. Those two actually share the top spot on Billboard's R&B producers ranking. And that's as of April of 2025. That was off the strength of their work with SZA and Kendrick Lamar. So imagine if you take that energy and apply it to Chris Brown's work ethic or his desire to put out so much music. Have him sit down, get really focused, get really creative, get really intentional. That's an album that people can tap into. That's an album that people can wrap their minds around. Now, with the Raymond and Chris Brown tour coming up with Usher, I legit hope Chris Brown performs no more than about 4 songs from this album. Like, ain't nobody coming to hear Chris Brown, the album. We trying to hear Chris Brown in the songs before this album. Because the tour, it deserves hits. Not some stuff that you just created on this end. This tour deserves moments. It deserves your catalog. And Brown just doesn't have enough of those moments to carry the real estate and the cachet and the entertainment that you're going to need on a show that big. One of Chris Brown's lyrics in Picture Me Rollin', which is on the Royalty album, he said, "I got ups. What can Brown do for you?" What this Chris Brown album can do for me is never be played again. Again, it hit the spot. Where do I land on everything with this, man? Chris Brown is not an album that this moment in 2026 is called for. You're coming off a Grammy for 1111. You're coming off a Breezy Bowl. Definitely has some real momentum there. But in my humble opinion, this feels like music dropped just to drop music. Not music that's built to build something. This music wasn't meant to mean something. It may mean a lot to you, but for the fans, I don't think it means enough for us. And another thing I will say that with Chris Brown's albums, his albums have a history of having to grow on you. I've been there before. Heartbreak on a Full Moon, it took me some time to really get through it. But once you get about to song 10 and down to about 21, that pocket right there, with Hope You Do, Everybody Knows, To My Bed, it's a great pocket to be in. And that right there, that part of the album, yeah. And we might find ourselves in the same situation. I'm not going to write it off completely, but right now, as of today, Brown leaves a lot to be desired. And that's coming from someone who has low expectations anyway. And I actually believe this moment that Pitchfork had, as brutal as it was, it might be exactly the kind of creative friction or the creative tension that pushes Breezy somewhere new. I feel like with Chris Brown's pride, his ego, his mentality, and it's like, oh, y'all keep saying I do the same thing. I tell you what, I'm going to show y'all I can do something different. I feel like that is possible. Will it happen? Not sure. Sometimes that harshest feedback is the one that finally makes that artist sit down and like build something different. I'm rooting for that version of Chris Brown because I think we all are. We saw Beyonce tap into country. We saw her tap into the house. We saw her tap into different lanes, which is a big risk. A lot of artists can't do that. But the Beyonce, being who she is, she was able to do it. And I believe Chris Brown actually has that ability. He does have the range to do it. While Fallen may not be one of his biggest songs in his career, it is a song that's well enough to show that he can produce some range for us. So I hope that's what we see in the future. What can Brown do for me at this point? Brown can actually get back in that studio, focus, lock in with producers who's going to push him to be the best version of him, to produce the best music that he can produce. And that's my time. That's been more insight you can trust because there is more where it came from. Lock in, twin.